You may not be aware of it, but right now there are companies out there making money off of your personal data. Data that you likely never agreed to share, like real-time location, spending habits, and private financial information. These data brokers say the information allows service providers to make our lives easier by personalizing their products. But privacy advocates say it's collected from our devices, smartphones, and wearables like Fitbits without our permission, and that once collected, it isn't properly secured. With no one single all-encompassing federal law regulating data brokers, more and more state legislatures are acting. 13 states now have comprehensive data privacy laws in effect or soon to take effect. Earlier this month, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill called the DELETE Act that consumer protection advocates say is a groundbreaking advance in privacy rights. Emery Rowan is policy counsel for Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, which advised California lawmakers on the bill. Emery, tell us what the DELETE Act does and why it's considered such a big advance by privacy advocates.
Right. So these consumer privacy laws that are coming online are almost all following the California model, which, though there are some variations, are based around the idea that you can go to a business and say, hey, tell me what information you have about me. Please don't share that information, and maybe delete that information if I want you to delete it. And businesses have to comply with that. But what about those hundreds or thousands of businesses out there that are buying and selling your information that you've never heard of? If you wanted to exercise your consumer rights against these businesses, you have to, one, know that they exist, which is difficult already. Then you're faced with the actual monumental task of exercising your rights. So you go to this registry, and there's 600 registered brokers in California right now. Then you initiate your California Consumer Privacy Act request, which can take up to 90 days to fulfill for every single broker on that list. And then, of course, once you exercise your privacy rights, there's nothing to stop that broker from turning around and then immediately collecting your information again and selling it from some other third party. So the DELETE Act recognizes that this is the framework we have and tries to imagine what would be required for a consumer to be able to effectively exercise the deletion right with data brokers. And what that looks like is that it takes the existing requirements in California that data brokers register with the Attorney General, and it moves that registration requirement to the California Privacy Protection Agency, as opposed to the Attorney General's office, a dedicated privacy enforcer. But most importantly, it requires the agency to, and by 2026 at least, create a mechanism that will allow any of us to go to the agency's website and in a few minutes, for free, for anyone with disabilities, require that every single broker that's on that list delete all of your personal information. They have to delete your information every 45 days and then have to stop selling or sharing your information for all of time into the future until you decide otherwise.
And what's the enforcement mechanism? If you don't know these companies exist, how can anyone tell whether they really have deleted this information?
That's a great point. Any law, especially privacy laws, are only as good as the enforcement mechanisms in it. So the California Consumer Privacy Act last year created the new California Privacy Protection Agency, the only dedicated privacy protection agency in the country. So they're going to have the ability to go into data brokers and make sure that they're deleting information when they're required to delete and make sure that they're registering when they're required to register. Additionally, the DELETE Act doubles the fines for non-registration, increases the amount of information that brokers have to provide every year when they register with the agency, and it also includes auditing requirements.
The head of the trade group of data brokers, obviously they oppose this bill, and they say that one of the things is this is going to give a big boost to big platforms like Google and Meta, who collect a lot of information but don't sell it, so they're not touched by this. What do you say to that?
Frankly, the California Consumer Privacy Act already exists, and it works fairly well when it comes to businesses that have a direct relationship with you. You can go to those businesses and you can exercise your CCPA rights without the fear that they're going to turn around and immediately start collecting your information from some other third party and selling it after the fact. That's simply not the case with data brokers.
This summer, the head of the Consumer Protection Finance Bureau said they were going to start rulemaking on data brokers. But given the nature of federal law right now, what can they actually do?
There's reason to be optimistic about the CFPB's rulemaking on data brokers. It's certainly long overdue, and it is desperately needed. To be clear, federal policy work is in a really tough place right now. It's California, other states are demonstrating the goals of federalism by innovating in legislature when able to get bills actually over the governor's desk, signed into law. We've faced tougher barriers, let's say, federally.
Now, the California law doesn't take effect until 2026. For
That's
people
right.
who don't live in California, who don't live in one of the states with a comprehensive data privacy law, what advice do you give them? How can they protect themselves?
Unfortunately, data brokers are an area where consumers have very little control. There are some private services you can use out there that attempt to, frankly, do what the Delete Act promises. There are consumer privacy services that will allow you to pay them to repeatedly send deletion requests or opt-out requests to data brokers. But there are some fundamental limitations that would really limit how effective those sort of delete services can be. So unfortunately, as you know, with everything where there is still a need for a legislative and a regulatory solution, there's precious little that consumers can do to avoid the reach of data brokers right now.
Emery Roan of Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, thank you very much.
Thank you.